The sun dipped behind the jagged peaks of the Ozark Mountains, casting long shadows over the rugged landscape. A wagon creaked along the dirt road, drawn by a single weary horse. Inside, Elias and Thomas Carrigan sat in silence. Elias, tall and gaunt with hollow cheeks, peered through the wagon slats, scanning the dense forests for threats or signs of curiosity. His younger brother Thomas, stout and broad-shouldered, hummed softly, attempting to mask the tension in the air with false cheerfulness. They rolled into the small logging town as evening descended, their wagon covered with a thick canvas that concealed its mysterious contents. The townsfolk watched from porches and windows, wary of strangers. Whispers followed their passage. Who are they? What brings them here? The Carrigans rented a modest cabin on the outskirts, claiming they would provide hearty meals for hard-working men. Hunger outweighed suspicion. Lumberjacks returning from long days of felling trees needed sustenance, and the promise of warm food was irresistible. Yet, beneath their polite greetings, an uneasy tension lingered. The brothers' eyes held a sharpness that unsettled those who looked too closely. By the next evening, the cabin glowed with the warm light of a roaring hearth. Smoke from the chimney twisted into the night sky. The brothers had prepared a feast: thick stews, roasted meat, freshly baked bread, and hearty pies. Exhausted lumberjacks filed in, their work-worn hands shaking as they grabbed bowls and dug in. The food was undeniably good. Every bite seemed to banish the fatigue and ache of a long day. Yet a subtle unease crept in. Some men noticed strange flavors, a hint of bitterness, an unfamiliar texture that didn't belong in ordinary meat. Still, hunger silenced suspicion, and the laughter around the table was hearty. Elias served silently, his eyes scanning each face. Thomas, smiling broadly, encouraged the men to enjoy themselves. The brothers' attention to detail was impeccable, but there was a glint in Elias's eyes, cold and calculating, that made even the boldest man glance away. At night, the forest surrounding the cabin seemed alive. Wolves howled in distant hollows, branches snapped under unseen footsteps, and occasionally, faint human-like cries pierced the darkness. Rumors spread among the townsfolk. The Carrigans, some whispered, aren't what they seem. Something unnatural surrounds them. Samuel, a young logger with a sharp mind, dared to voice concern. One evening, he approached the cabin as the brothers prepared their meals. "Where does your meat come from?" he asked, his voice low but firm. Thomas laughed, a booming sound meant to charm and disarm. "Curiosity will get you nowhere, boy. Come eat and leave your questions behind." Elias's glare, however, did not waver. There was a warning in his eyes. Some truths were dangerous to uncover. Dr. Harlan, the town's aging physician, began noticing a troubling pattern. Lumberjacks who frequented the Carrigan cabin sometimes disappeared, their absences coinciding with the brothers' nightly feasts. The doctor's curiosity soon turned to dread. One morning he followed the brothers under the guise of routine errands, keeping to the shadows. They led him to a secluded barn near the edge of the forest. Through the slats, Harlan glimpsed hooks, chains, and dark stains on the floor. The sight made his stomach churn. He turned away, fear gripping his heart, but a burning need to protect the town spurred him onward. The barn was worse than Harlan had imagined. Rusted chains hung from the rafters, and a foul stench lingered in the air. Hooks swung slightly, as if moved by some invisible hand. Harlan's mind raced. Could the meat served at the cabin be human? His hands trembled as he realized the horrifying possibility. Determined to act, he returned to town to warn the sheriff. But the lawman, pragmatic and weary from years of hardship, dismissed the warnings. "Ghost stories don't feed men," he said. "Leave the Carrigans be." Frustration burned in Harlan's chest. He knew inaction could cost lives. That night, Dr. Harlan confronted the brothers directly at the cabin. Candlelight flickered across the wooden walls as he demanded answers. Thomas greeted him warmly, offering a steaming bowl of stew. "Relax, Doctor. You worry too much," he said with a practiced charm. Elias, however, did not smile. "You shouldn't have come," he whispered, voice low and menacing. "Curiosity can be deadly." Harlan's heart pounded, but he stood firm. He could see beneath the brothers' outward charm the darkness that lurked in their meticulous actions. The air thickened with tension, and every creak of the cabin seemed amplified in the silence. Days later, Samuel vanished. His tools were found by the river, abandoned as if he had been snatched mid-task. Panic spread among the townsfolk. Mothers hugged their children closer. Wives whispered warnings to their husbands. The once joyful gatherings at the Carrigan cabin became fraught with tension. Empty chairs at the table were a grim reminder that not everyone returned from the forest safely. Fear began to overshadow hunger. No one dared openly question the brothers anymore, yet suspicion lingered like a shadow over every meal. The town split into factions. Some, too hungry or too stubborn, continued visiting the cabin. Others avoided it entirely, following Dr. Harlan's warnings. Rumors grew wilder, cries in the forest, strange lights at night, men disappearing after meals. Children were warned not to wander, and darkness became a cloak of dread. Elias and Thomas thrived in this tension. Their charm pacified the wary, while the fear of the unknown kept others away. They were masters of a dangerous balance, part hospitality, part menace, all inscrutable. One evening, Thomas personally invited Dr. Harlan for a private dinner. "Come, Doctor. Taste our finest dish," he said, his grin almost predatory. Harlan's gut screamed to refuse, but curiosity tugged at him. The invitation seemed like a challenge, and he could not ignore it. He arrived at the cabin just as twilight settled over the mountains. Smoke curled from the chimney, and the scent of roasting meat drifted into the night. The cabin felt warm and inviting, masking the lurking danger, a seductive trap in the guise of hospitality. The dinner began like any other. Soup simmered on the stove, vegetables glistened with butter, and tender meat filled the platters. Harlan ate cautiously, savoring each bite, until a horrifying realization struck him. The taste was familiar, disturbingly so. A fleeting memory of Samuel's laugh, his voice, his presence, something unmistakable, made Harlan freeze mid-chew. His stomach churned. Could it be true? Had he been right all along? He excused himself abruptly and fled into the night, heart racing. Determined to uncover the truth, he knew he needed concrete proof, evidence that could protect the town before more lives were lost. Dr. Harlan confided in Peter, the town's blacksmith, a burly man whose hands were calloused from years of hammering iron. "We need proof," Harlan urged, his voice trembling. "Otherwise, more men will disappear." Peter nodded grimly. Together they devised a plan to investigate the Carrigans' barn during the next feast. They would hide, observe, and confront the brothers with undeniable evidence. That night, anxiety clung to them like fog. Every snap of a branch, every hoot of an owl, made their hearts race. The forest, usually a sanctuary, now felt like a trap, watching their every move. Under the cloak of darkness, Harlan and Peter crept toward the barn. Through a crack in the weathered planks, they glimpsed a scene that froze their blood. The brothers moved with precise coordination, cutting and preparing, but not in the way they had feared. There were props. Hooks swung over empty spaces, chains rattled as if in use. There were jars of preserved animals, not human victims. The brothers were orchestrating a grim illusion, a theatrical display of horror meant to deter anyone who might threaten the forest. The last meals were never human. Every gruesome rumor, every whispered warning had been part of a careful, frightening ruse. Harlan and Peter stumbled inside, hearts pounding. The truth emerged fully. The Carrigans were guardians of the forest, not monsters. They preserved endangered animals, used herbal remedies, and maintained the illusion of horror to protect the wilderness from poachers and intruders. Elias explained in a low voice, "Fear is a shield, Doctor. People listen to what scares them." Thomas smiled gently, revealing shelves filled with rare herbs, preserved birds, and intricate tools for forest conservation. Harlan's relief was tempered by guilt. How easily they had judged, how quickly fear had clouded reason. With proof in hand, Harlan and Peter confronted the brothers openly. Elias, usually reserved, spoke with measured calm. "We understand your fear," he said, "but you were mistaken. Our intentions are protective, not predatory." Thomas laughed softly, the warmth in his eyes genuine for the first time in Harlan's memory. "You've seen the truth. Now you know why the forest must remain untouchable." The revelation stunned them. The brothers' methods were unorthodox, even macabre in appearance, but their hearts were devoted to life, not death. The town learned a painful but valuable lesson. Fear, left unchecked, can warp perception. Rumors and imagination had almost destroyed innocent lives. The community reflected on their hasty judgments. They realized that courage and curiosity, paired with compassion, were more powerful than fear. The tale of the Carrigans became a story not of horror, but of vigilance and moral insight. Even Samuel, the young logger who had disappeared temporarily, returned safely, revealing that his absence had been a misunderstanding, lost in the woods during a solitary task. Elias and Thomas gradually earned the town's trust. They shared knowledge of herbal medicine, survival techniques, and sustainable hunting practices. Children listened in awe as the brothers demonstrated how to identify edible plants and track wildlife. Adults, initially skeptical, began to admire their dedication. The cabin that had once inspired fear became a place of learning, curiosity, and cautious respect. The Carrigans had transformed their reputation from terrifying outsiders to guardians of wisdom. One winter, as snow blanketed the Ozark Mountains, the brothers organized a town feast. The cabin glowed with warmth, filled with laughter, music, and the aroma of wholesome food. They shared tales of the forest, lessons about balance, and stories of survival. The community, once wary, now saw the brothers as protectors, teachers, and friends. Elias's cold, calculating gaze softened into genuine smiles. Thomas's laughter rang freely, no longer a tool of intimidation but a sound of joy and camaraderie. The Carrigan story became a legend, passed down through generations. Children heard of the brothers' macabre feasts and shivered in delight, but the adults remembered the deeper truth. Appearances can deceive, fear can mislead, and even the darkest acts may conceal noble intentions. The Ozark Mountains remained wild and untamed, a living testament to vigilance, understanding, and respect for life. Dr. Harlan often visited the brothers, now close friends. He marveled at how easily fear had almost destroyed reason, and how courage, patience, and careful observation had revealed the truth. The town's respect for the forest deepened, and with it, their appreciation for the Carrigans' dedication. The story lingered as a cautionary tale. Never judge too quickly, and always seek the truth beneath appearances. Even Samuel, now grown and responsible, often returned to help the brothers in their work, grateful for the lessons learned through fear and revelation. When Elias and Thomas eventually passed, the entire town mourned deeply. Yet their legacy endured. The forest remained protected, the town wiser, and the story of fear transformed into one of hope. The mountains whispered their names, not in terror, but in reverence. Children grew up learning the lessons of observation, compassion, and the strange beauty of truth hidden in shadow. The Ozark Mountains, once haunted by whispers of horror, now held a story of wisdom, courage, and the macabre turned heartwarming. The story of the brothers who served lumberjacks as their last meal. but ultimately saved countless lives in the process.